So my name is Jack. I'm an ordinary committee member here at Coders for Causes. And for this winter Elucidate project, I'm going to be the project manager. So that means I'm going to oversee all the operational aspects of the project to make sure that everything is on track. Now, I won't claim I'm the best programmer here, so I'm obviously not. But and again, for the projects, it's more about helping each other, so going through code reviews, stuff like that. So congratulations to all of you for making it to our winter projects. It's been a very competitive program, and you've all made it here, so congratulations. And we'll just quickly introduce ATAR Survival Guide to you. Now, they will have two representatives coming in a bit later at around 2:30, but we've started a bit early as well due to our schedule for the day. So we'll just quickly introduce them to you. So ATAR Survival Guide is essentially a non-profit organization run by university students as well. So they have an e-learning platform for high school students to learn about ATAR subjects, and that includes a lot of resources as well. So they do currently have a quiz platform, but that's built off Quizlet and it's embedded into their website, which is not ideal for them due to some issues regarding permissions. So they have contacted us to build a new quiz platform for them. And so this web platform is essentially a web application that allows users to take quizzes relating to topics from various ATAR subjects. And now they also have users who will be able to upload quizzes as well, so create and upload quizzes. So that's going to be one of the main features of the project. And these users will need to be approved by ATAR Survival Guide as well. So that's just basically a rundown of the project overview. So essentially a quiz platform. And now just quickly running through the tech stack. So as Ash mentioned earlier in his intro to web dev workshop, we have a full stack application that is usually built with a front end and a back end. So in this case, the front end will be using Nuxt.js, which is essentially a framework built off the Vue library. And the front end is just what the users see, essentially, when they open up your web application. For this project, we will be using Cypress to do end-to-end testing, and Jest to do component tests and other sorts of tests as well, like integration tests, so that can be done there. And that pretty much covers our front end, Nuxt. And for backend, we're using a Python framework called Django. Django is really cool. It simplifies a lot of things when you build REST APIs. So we're going to be using one of the framework, sub-frameworks, micro-framework, called Django REST framework. So that helps you build APIs, which allows you to communicate with your front end. And in addition to that, we're going to be hosting the Django backend on a web server called Apache. So that will take your HTTP requests and essentially pass it on to Django. But we might also be using Nginx as well, depending on the deployment platform we'll be using to do a proxy for the API endpoints into the main domain URL. But that's a bit later. For the database, we'll be using PostgreSQL. That is a relational database. We won't really have to write too much SQL queries in our case specifically. Django has a nice ORM, which is a object relational mapper, which essentially lets you create a Django code, and then they will do the migrations and the queries themselves, so Django will, into Postgres. So yeah, very nice. It's a very cool stack. That's sort of basically the front end and the back end. Now, other than that, we'll also be using mkdocs to generate our documentations. So what that essentially means is you can write your documentations whilst you do the project in Markdown, and that will get transpiled into a static HTML website. If you have used GitHub Pages before, it's sort of similar to Jekyll, but again, we'll be touching on how to use that throughout the project, so don't stress too much. Now, just quickly going through the architecture. So we have our front end here and our back end here. So as explained before, essentially users will be able to send a HTTP request, which is essentially when they open a website or web page, and they will get requested to Nuxt.js. So Nuxt.js essentially transpiles your JavaScript code into HTML, which then gets displayed to the users. There is also server-side rendering as well, so it's a cool little app that essentially will be what your users will be seeing. So that sends HTTP requests to API endpoints, which is hosted by Apache, and that communicates with your Django REST APIs to essentially handle the business logic, and that gets communicated as well to the PostgreSQL database. So yeah, just a quick overview of the architecture. And over here, we'll also be using, as like I explained, end-to-end testing with Cypress and Jest for component testing of the tests. Now, for this project, there are two stages that we'll be going through. So the first one is what's called a minimum viable product, MVP. And MVP is just something that we want to, the bare minimum that we want to deliver to the clients. So these parts of the essential features that we want in our product. And after which, if we finish the MVP earlier than expected, we can expand on that with additional features that will get integrated into our final product. But our goal for this project is to finish all of these features, so I'll just quickly run through them. So the quizzes themselves will contain both multiple choice and text-based responses. So that's fairly self-explanational. Students or users can also search for quizzes using their names. But in addition to that, they'll also be able to filter by the tags. So if it's like a Unit 1 or Unit 2, Unit 3 is Unit 4, so Year 11, Year 12, and what sort of subjects they want. So filtering and searching. Now, students will also be able to see the answers after they do the quizzes themselves. Okay. Okay. Students will be able to see the answers to the quizzes that they've completed, and they will also be able to mark themselves whether they're right or not. But we can possibly improve this by having the application mark itself whether it's correct or not. And obviously, there will be an authentication system, so users / students will be able to make accounts and sign in. Now we'll go through the authentication workflow a bit later down the line, but that is one of the features. And ASG approved creators can create and publish their own quizzes. So ASG will be able to essentially through an admin dashboard, essentially grant certain users permissions to create and publish quizzes. Now in addition to that, they will also be able to manage the users and the quizzes as well. So they'll be able to approve whether a quiz will be, I guess, appropriate for the specific curriculum. So just to make sure that relevant quizzes are submitted to the platform. And again, just showing you the project scope. So for the MVP. Now, I won't be going through this again, but these presentation slides will be made available after this presentation, so you can refer back to it a bit later when you do the project yourselves. So you can sort of see the overview of the project and what needs to be done, but essentially I'll just go through. So this is a front end, so you have homepage, quizzes, authentication, admin dashboard, and taking quizzes. Let me just quickly touch up on the analytics. We haven't mentioned that before, but ASG will be able to see sort of how many users have passed or failed a quiz, and they'll have that analytic to see what sort of content they'll need to deliver and add to their own current e-learning platform based off these results, so that students will be able to solidify their learning by essentially touching base on these quizzes. And this is just a backend, so just give you a few seconds to take a look. Again, these will be all provided in the slideshow later. which we'll be providing. And now the sitemap. This is a general rough working copy of what we would like to implement. So we have here the homepage, which will probably link you to like a user information page about what the quiz platform is about. In addition to that, we have the dashboard here. So that will be what the users will be able to see. So that could contain a lot of stuff here, sort of analytics relating to how many quizzes a certain user has done per day, and if they've done what sort of previous quizzes. And now we have just a general overview page of what sort of subjects are available for students to take. And when they click on the quiz subject, there's also, you can sort of see the quizzes that are available for that subject. And the $ just means there are more than one. So obviously this is one page, and then it could be like 5 or 10 pages here. So
yeah, like there's a page for each quiz?
Yep, exactly.
Basically.
Yep, so that's where the students will be able to take the quizzes. And now we have an authentication sort of workflow here. It's mainly for the front end, but there will be a login page for students to log in. So when they click that page, there's also the option to sign up as well, or reset password. So resetting password will be their own separate page. So we'll be working with probably like an email API to deliver that password reset link as well. So we're working on that. And here we have that upload feature, which only certain users will be able to have access to, depending on whether they've been granted permission by ASG. And lastly, we do have the user profile page as well, so sort of if users want to edit or add their information. So, yeah.
I think we missed the admin dashboard.
Yeah.
We didn't have it in the sitemap.
Yeah, sorry. So just from the general user dashboard as well, we can also have like a separate dashboard for admin users, so they'll be able to approve or manage quizzes from there as well as users. And that means banning users if they made inappropriate comments somewhere there, or if they uploaded inappropriate quizzes. But that also includes the ability to add users to be able to make quizzes. Thanks, Ash. Now, we have the quick project teams. So we have 6 teams for this project. So we have essentially 3 to 4 people per project team. Now, I've just added 2 of our committee members into our team leaders and added 4 based on previous project experience or their application. Please let me know after this presentation if you don't want to be a project leader, but tentatively these are our teams. And after this presentation as well, we'll be letting you sort of choose, we'll give you the option to choose who you sort of want to work with. Now, Ash and I will probably be going around helping people with certain features as well. And now regarding stand-ups. So stand-ups are essentially short meetings to sort of catch up with your team members and also the whole of your project team. So that's all 15 of us instead of your sub-team. So these meetings tentatively will be happening every Wednesday from 6 to 6:30 p.m. Now that can obviously be changed depending on our schedules and availability. So we're happy to change if this time is unavailable for most people here. So yeah, just going through how stand-ups work. So we have 2 types. So one's called walking the board and one's called round robin. So in round robin, which is the one that we'll be using, so each person sort of goes around saying that what have they done for the week, what are their plans for the next week or the coming week, and also are there any blockers, so are they stuck on implementing any features? And that sort of allows the rest of the team to catch up with them on the progress of the specific issues that they're working on. And now, very small workshop sort of thing. for the Git system. So Git is essentially a version control system to keep track of changes in a software project. And these code for the softwares are contained in what's called a repository. So for our projects, we'll be working together by using Git and GitHub, sort of like Ash explained earlier in his intro to web dev. So that's Git, which is a system that allows us to work together by keeping track of changes in the software. We'll be using the cloud service called GitHub to actually use Git. So cloud service to manage Git repositories. So in addition to managing out Git repositories, they also contain other services such as issues and project boards that allows us to work together more easily, essentially. And Ash has kindly made a documentation here, which you will be able to access later on the specific commands, essentially how to use Git. But just a quick sort of main overview. Our main project is contained in a branch called main. And when your team wants to work on a feature, you check out a new branch, and that's where you'll actually be working on the features yourselves. And when you want to push that feature back into the main repository with the rest of the product, you submit what's called a pull request, and that merges your feature back into the main branch. And there will be some issues if your teammates have worked on the same things. That can create what's called a merge conflict, is when two parts of the code are changed by the different people, and when you want to merge that back in, it sort of gives you the option to choose which changes you want to keep and which changes you want to remove. Now, you will be able to talk to either your team leaders or myself or Ash or your project helpers, and then we'll help you resolve those issues should you be unable to resolve them. So now one of the better practices is to not push directly into the main branch and always use sub-branches to work on your features. Now the reason we do that is because we don't want to contaminate the main branch with unfinished commits and commits that may not necessarily be in the end product, right? So yeah, so basically always use branches to work on your features. And now for this project, we have actually made the main branch protected. That means you won't be able to directly commit to main. And when you do want to submit your feature back into the main branch, you will need 2 approving code reviews to be able to do that. So we'll go through that a bit later. Now, just generally talking about the Git version control, GitHub workflow. So how you'll actually be working on this project is, so firstly, you can decide as a team the issues that you want to work on. So we'll have a page on GitHub where you'll be able to see a list of all the issues or essentially tasks that can be worked on. And as a team, you can decide on the issues that you want to take. So after that, you can assign yourselves to the issues. There's a button on the issues page that you'll be able to do so. And also there will be tags for you to tag yourself or your team to the issue, so we know that you're working on that. And then a branch corresponding to that issue will be created automatically by GitHub workflow, so you don't need to worry about that. And in your local IDEs or whatever you're editing your code on, so such as VS Code, you can open up a terminal or use a GUI to check out the branch. So that's essentially making that branch locally. And then that branch, by the way, will be in the format of issue number. So again, that's the issue that your team has decided to work on. Dash issue name. So that will be made automatically. So after that, you'll work on your changes. So decide on with your team on which parts of that issue that you want to work on. Make commits. So commits are essentially like a snapshot of the current progress of your issue or your project. But essentially, you can make commits and then push them to that branch. So lastly, after your branch has finished working on that specific feature, you can open a pull request on GitHub and then wait for 2 approving code reviews, and after which you can merge that feature into the main branch. Now, after all that is done and your feature is merged, you can delete your local branch with git branch -d branch name. Again, you'll be able to access all of these commands a bit later as well. And now, for our project, we'll be using what's called conventional commits to ensure our commit messages and our pull requests are formatted consistently. Now, your commit messages and pull requests should be in the following format, so type, scope, and subject. Now, scope is optional, but it is recommended that you put that in. So here's an example of the commit message. So we have a type here, which is feat. It's short for feature. And that is basically a description of the type of change that you want to make. And then you have the scope, is sort of it's sort of self-explanatory. So you have the core features, authentication, and that sort of stuff. We do have a list later in the project's README. If we want to refer back to that later, it has a list of all the scopes and types that we have. And lastly, you have the subject, which is your summary of what your change is. So, example, adding hat wobble. Go. Now, in an industry project, which this project is, so it's for a real organization, we obviously want to document everything that we write, right? So other people, if there are other developers that want to work on this or maintain this, they will know exactly what you have done and what they can do to change that to their own preferences. So definitely it is important to document everything. And for this project, as we talked about earlier, we'll be using MK Docs. So you'll be writing everything in Markdown. We'll be showing you how to write Markdown as well. And then that gets transpiled automatically into a static website, which is where your documentation will be displayed. Now, we'll also be doing testing as well. So there are many types of testing. So at the very top, we have end-to-end testing, which is how each of the systems work together. So we can do testing, end-to-end testing with Cypress, which is a JavaScript library. And on a lower level, there's also integration tests and component tests. We'll be using a library called Jest to do these. These are also JavaScript libraries, but there will be a testing workshop that will be run in the near future in a couple of weeks or so. So you'll learn about testing and so on. Now for the backend, we'll be using the Django testing suite to run our tests and write our tests. So Django testing suite is built off the unit test module. So that's also written in Python. So, yep. And that pretty much concludes our slides for the day. And just good luck and have fun on the project. We welcome all of you aboard. And congratulations for joining our project team. And thank you very much.
All right, thanks very much, Jack. That was lovely. We do have Christian and Sean from ASG come here, so we're very lucky. Would you guys like to
Sure.
introduce yourselves to all of us?
You want to give first Hey guys, how you going? Wow, this is a pretty lot. Hey, how many do we have in this room?
I don't know, like about 20?
20.
Something like that.
Are you guys all first, second, third years? Where were you at? Second?
Probably a mixture of everything,
Yeah.
really.
Who's partying tonight? Who's going out tonight? I'm chatting drinks at cafes later on, so maybe at 6 p.m. No.
Fantastic.
So, I guess a brief summary. So my name is Christian Bien. I'm the founder and CEO of Elucidate, which is previously known as the ATAR Survival Guide. So I guess a little bit brief background about me. So I studied commerce. So I studied a fake degree, not a real degree like you guys, with real technical know-how. Studied accounting and finance, really good with numbers, but I'm really terrible at coding. So there's a funny joke. When I first started the platform, I had all these if statements in my platform. So it was basically, if this was clicked, do this. But then if this was that, do that. Basically, I did an if for every single scenario that was possible. And I repeated that for like 10 or 12 elements. It was causing it to like load for like 20 seconds straight. And calling it the crash. So basically, apparently there was a real simple way of doing it. But my background, yeah, it's not very technical. My technical skills, you know, I learned finance, I learned numbers, I didn't learn code, and that's probably like the real where the whole world is going in the future. But what I did do, so I studied accounting finance at Curtin, did that about 3 years, went straight into the workforce, did management consulting for around about 2 years. So I did a lot of strategy, transaction-related consulting, a bit of mergers and acquisitions. And then I moved on into sort of an in-house corporate development function. But what I love doing, and what I do every Saturday, is probably the reason why you're here on a Saturday, is I go down to Bloom and I work with my team on Elucidate. So, what is Elucidate? So Elucidate is a student-powered education platform. So, a bit of context. When I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of money. My parents were Vietnamese, spoke refugees. There wasn't a lot of money going on in the house. I worked at the local Woolworths just to get a textbook to go through. And I remember thinking, what if there was someone else out there that needed support? What if someone else out there needed a helping hand to get through year 11 and year 12, but couldn't get there because they didn't have the money, or they couldn't access a tutor because they were living in regional WA. And as a result, I created a small platform called ATAR Survival Guide to help you survive through ATAR. I know, guys, pay me the marketing dollars. It was very genius. And one of the other reasons I did it was because I was one of those nerdy kids in the class who would always be like, Miss, can I move on to the next subject? I finished. And she'd be like, hold on, Christian, calm your farm. We've got to wait till we progress to the next subject. But she said something really important to me. She said, why don't you help teach the other kids? Because the ones who are struggling, if you teach them, you also teach yourself and you're learning as well. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to be a student-powered platform where students can learn, but also give back and teach themselves as well and teach others. So that was sort of 5 or 6 years ago. I did that when I was in my bedroom in year 12. And from there, I progressed a little bit. And then I kind of left it on pause a bit. I was really into consulting, did all the consulting stuff at uni. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of all those stuff. Started the club and doing all those sort of things. And I went into a consulting job, and I was like, man, this is like missing a lot of passion and a lot of drive, and what am I doing this? I'm just making someone else rich. And I get an email, it was from Wix, and Wix says to me, you owe me $400. And I was like, what? This seems like a mistake. And then I investigated, it wasn't. It was because they'd upgraded me to a different plan, because the amount of users on it was too high. And at the time, it was 20,000 users a year logging onto the platform. Now, we go around about 78,000 for the year, and it's still growing. And it made me think, okay, I don't really like what I'm doing, I'm not really passionate about what I'm doing, don't like making others rich, I want to make myself rich. No, I'm just kidding. But I thought, there's something here, there's something people are going on there, they're just a bunch of notes, but what if I take a gamble, do something a bit with it? So I thought, I went down and said, let's update it, let's refresh some of it, let's change the UI, make it a bit more nice and neat. Then I started getting people involved in the platform, started getting someone who I knew more involved, and she became our Chief Operations Officer, who unfortunately can't be here today. And then started building more of a team. Now we have around about How many now? Like 10, 12 people?
About 10, 12.
10, 12?
But the core team is maybe about 5, 6.
Yeah, so we have a core operation team about 5 to 6, but then if you expand it out to people who contribute to the platforms around about 10 to 12. We've also got a board of directors, so there's around about 6 people on the board of directors to help provide the governance and ensure we're on the right track for our mission. And our mission is pretty simple. We create a platform, students can learn for free. So if you're a student, there is no cost to you whatsoever. Go in there, you can learn, you find out what subject you want, you can learn from the course content, and it's all aligned towards the Australian syllabus. And if you've had some really great success with it, you really enjoy the platform, we ask that you potentially give back and contribute to the platform by donating your time and expertise, or you can donate your notes in high school, and then we can help update the platform, make sure it gets even better for the next years of cohorts of students. So it's a student platform for students, powered by students. And another message and part of that is the commercial element. So we don't take a fee, we're not-for-profit, we're registered not-for-profit. And part of this is also to kind of stick it to the finger to the commercial providers, right? I'm not sure if you guys remember back in high school, you get textbooks for what, 120 bucks. They're kind of like half of it is updated from the year before. Some of them don't even spell right. Then the worst part is the revision course. It's like 400 bucks and we'll lecture you for 10 hours, but you don't learn anything. What we're trying to do is put the students first, put the student focus first, and make them the power to help teach other students. So instead of using a commercial provider that's not effective, we're using students who are effective, who are passionate, and using that to connect to other students to teach others. So it's about teaching others, learning, so once you go on the platform, you learn and you teach back. And then that next cohort learns and then teach back. So that's the platform. What we're really excited to do is we've always had a lot of content, a lot of notes on there. We want to take it to the next level. I'm presenting to we've got the board meeting next week, and I'm presenting what our future looks like. And what that future looks like is more content, more engaging content. So more videos, but also more quiz features as well. We want to get a quiz feature because we want people to test their understanding, and hopefully down the track be able to track their understanding and see what did I go well, what did I go wrong, and be able to have the students create their own tests as well, so to share with others. So that's what we're trying to do. It's really fantastic to see all you guys here being involved, all of you guys being part of this journey. And yeah, so thank you so much. Is there, do you guys have any questions, or have you had the opportunity to look at the platform? If you want to harass me about the code, feel free to do that later on. But yeah, so thank you so much. Is there any questions, anything like that? No? Yes, one
How
question.
did you choose the name Elucidate, the new name?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we went through a very long process in choosing a different name. One, we wanted a name that was beyond ATAR. So I think the way the world's moving is, you might not need an ATAR school. You guys probably UW so you still do an ATAR school. But if you want to go to another university, or I think there's less pressure around for ATAR. But also I think there needs to be more support for those who are general students, right? It might, you guys might have done really well, and it may seem basic to you guys, but the general kids need support. But I also think we could branch out and maybe support other years, or wherever that direction looks like. But the other thing is, we had through a bunch of names, and also a lot of domain addresses are taken for pretty much every name you can think of. And if you ever start your own business, try doing a trademark search. It's not a fun experience. But the last thing, of course, is elucidate actually mean, if you look up the meaning, it means to explain something clearly or make things simple. And that's what we're trying to do. We're not a textbook. If you want a textbook, you've got heaps of detail, you've got heaps of instruction. If you want a teacher, you've got more personalised support, but you might not get enough intensive care. We're in that middle part. We're trying to make key concepts simple, but also be available 24/7. So, does that answer your question? Any other questions? Awesome. Well, if you guys want to have a chat with me, I'll stick around afterwards, but really pleased that you guys are working with us and really excited to get this journey forward. Thank you.
scheduler?
Sorry?
What's on the scheduler? Do you
I
know?
think it's just admin now from like 3 p.m. until 4. But we
Right,
finished
so
a bit
just
early.
peer coding.
Peer coding,
Yeah.
setting up the
All right, guys. So now that we're done with the presentation stuff, what we're gonna do now is get everyone to kind of clone the project code onto their computers from the repository, and just have a look at the documentation that Jack has written up on the GitHub page, which is the README file. And feel free to have a chat with people sitting around you. Hi, how's it going?